And today, the topic for today is deep tech for good. While sustainability is a big topic, we all know that if you don't measure something, you can't improve it. And therefore, tech enables us to measure at scale, measure in depth. And therefore, deep tech is important to enable our journey to measure and improve our sustainability index. And therefore, today's session gains extra importance as we start first with a keynote by Gopalan, who leads the AI Institute of Intel in India in Bangalore. And after that, we have a wonderful panel, and different speakers will give you multiple perspectives from the startup side and also from some of the established companies. So, hope you have a great day and you get wonderful ideas and a conglomeration of various concepts so that we can find out how we can co-create, build, and collaborate to create a sustainable tomorrow. And with that opening note, I would like to hand over to Gopalan to take us for the keynote. Over to you, and take the floor, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you, Jose. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, friends. I'm Gopalan. I lead the AI Center of Excellence in Intel. Again, the views that I'm expressing here are my personal view, doesn't represent my employer's views. With that disclaimer, let's get started. So before I get into the topic, I want to express my heartfelt acknowledgements to some of these personalities who have inspired me in my life. First is Mr. Kamlesh Patel, who is the president of the Heartfulness Institute. Some of his thoughts I'll be covering in this presentation. And then the second is my mentor, Dr. Shailesh Kumar, who is the chief data scientist of Reliance Jio, and Dr. Kai-Fu Lee, who leads the Sinovision Ventures in Beijing, and then Dr. Yoshua Bengio, who leads the Element AI, as well as he is a professor in University of Montreal in Canada. With that heartfelt acknowledgements, let's get into the topic. So I wanted to cover three things today. The first is AI in healthcare, and second is how can AI democratize skills, and then the third is AI for environment. Let's get into the first one, which is AI for healthcare. We all know that as intelligent human beings, we are endowed with these five senses. In Sanskrit, we call them as the Pancha Indriyas, the ability to see, to hear, to smell, to taste, and to touch and feel. The endeavor of artificial intelligence is to create these senses in a machine so that they can also behave like human beings by processing the data that comes from the environment, and with its prior knowledge, it is able to make intelligent decisions like how a human being makes. If we can create machines with these five senses, we all know that our mobile device today can see, can also hear, and also speak to us. If we have come fairly a significant path in this journey. If we can create machines like this, my question and the thought I wanted to put in front of you is, how can these machines augment people who have one of these disabilities? If somebody has a disability to see or to hear or to perform any other task that for which these five senses are needed, can we complement them or augment them with the machines that we are creating? That's the focus of my topic on AI in healthcare. So before that, I wanted to quote an interesting quote from Bible, which says, "The blind will see, the deaf will hear, the lame will walk, the dumb will speak." This is from Bible. And I think artificial intelligence has listened to this from Bible. Today, if you look at our endeavor in artificial intelligence, we are exactly doing this. We are making the blind to see, the deaf to hear, and the lame to walk, and the dumb to speak. I'll talk about a couple of examples on how today AI is able to do this. Let's take this first one, where I wanted to talk about the situation in India. If you look at India today, 1% of our population is having the hearing impairment. If I translate this to numbers, we are talking about 1.8 crores of our children, and our brothers and sisters who are struggling to be included in the society because of this handicap. And there are multiple problems associated with this. There isn't a standard Indian sign language. There are region to region sign languages available, but there isn't an evolved and a mature Indian sign language. And the other challenge here is only 2% of these children are actually literate. That clearly shows that there is a big inclusion problem with the people who are impaired in hearing. So one of the thought that I wanted to present in front of you today is how can AI help these people who have the inability or who have the challenge to hear and to perform tasks like any other human beings. So if all we need to look at is what is the sign language they use, because we know that the Indian sign language is not yet fully matured. If that is the case, can we think about creating a digital persona, a digital twin of this person who has this hearing impairment, and can this individual train this digital persona to understand the sign language of this individual, because this person, with a very high probability that this person may not be performing or doing the Indian sign language, the standard one. Can this person now train this digital persona so that when they interaction is anyhow two ways, where as a deaf person I would like to communicate with somebody, so I need to express my sign language in words, and when somebody expresses in words, I must be able to interpret it using a sign language. And this sign language, can we do mass personalization so that we don't need to wait for Indian sign language to emerge, but create this digital persona which can be trained by this by this hearing impaired individuals, who can then train this digital persona and use it like their companion. This is one case of where nicely we can augment an individual who has got the deficiency in hearing with the AI, with the digital persona, which is going to be assisted by deep learning and natural language understanding process. So this is one example I wanted to present in front of you. The second is, when we talk about how AI can augment an individual who has got some kind of a physical disability. I want to talk about an example of, this person is called Manami Ito. She's also called as a miracle violinist. She's from Japan, by the way. And you can see her, she has got a prosthesis, prosthetic hand, and a delicately designed bow for the violin, which is also custom designed. If you look at her story, it is very, 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 very touching. I was moved, when I heard this story, so I thought I will share it with all of you. She was a violinist, and she met with a very cruel accident way back in 2004, where she lost her right arm, and she didn't give up. She actually, immediately after this accident, she went into a depression, and for almost 1 year, she didn't even come out of her house. One fine day, her mother said, "I want you to play violin again." That was the turning point in her life. She said, "I'm not going to, push myself to a corner in the society, but I'm going to push myself to be included in the society." So what she went ahead and then did was worked with the medical community here, and then developed this prosthetic hand along with the delicate bow that can play violin, as if she had the original hand, she would have played it. Now, where is AI here? AI is fundamentally, this is a skilled individual. She was a violinist before the accident, and what AI has done here is, all they have done is they have put a elegant chip, which obviously has a neural net inside, which translates the brain circuitry and the signals and then converts it to the prosthetic robo arm. So she is able to now communicate her commands to brain, and then those commands are getting translated to actionable inputs to this prosthetic hand, and she is able to play the violin, like how she used to play earlier also. This is the augmentation that AI can bring to disabled individuals. that's about my first topic on how AI can play an augmenting role for our fellow brothers and sisters who have any of these deficiencies in their senses, in those five sensory senses, or even when they have a physical disability. The second is a very radical idea which I got as an intuition from another inspiring personality called Ray Kurzweil, he's considered as one of the futurists in AI, and I was reading his book on how to create a mind. So I want to give you, set some context before we dive into the topic itself. We all know how GPS and WhatsApp has removed the friction in transactions today. I call this as the GPS economy and the WhatsApp economy. GPS economy is, if I am driving, today I can drive to any corner of Bangalore, even if the landmark is, only in India we have a landmark, format of address. We don't have exact address, but we will say next to Spice Garden, or behind Matrabudam tailors. Even with this kind of unorganized or fairly unstructured address information, today I can go to any corner of this country without pulling my car from the highway and asking for a passerby the direction, right? This I call it as the GPS economy. Somebody needs to do an analysis of what is the value this has generated to our economy, because it has essentially removed the friction in many of the transactions. I'm just giving you one example, which is my personalized experience, right? The second is WhatsApp economy. Today, we can, negotiate deals with a plumber or with an electrician. I call this as the sub 10,000 transactions, right? You can do this comfortably with WhatsApp. It is another, this is another amazing lubricant in our economy, which has removed the friction transactions, which are sub 10,000 category, right? You don't even need to know this person face to face. You can absolutely do this with some of these, radical changes that have happened in the telecommunication domain as well as in the digital domain. My concept or my idea that I want to present in front of you today is the neural economy. We saw, when we spoke about AI in healthcare, we saw the case of Manami Ito, who was able to AI was able to augment her, she was able to fundamentally rediscover her violin skills. Now, I'm taking it one level, which is going to be, it's a fairly disruptive idea. I wanted to throw it in front of the AI community, whoever is listening here, right? Can we train a neural net and transfer our skills, so that who wants to master the skills? You are not really learning, you are just augmenting straight away. For example, we all know SP Balasubramanian was a great singer, and we have his YouTube videos. But if I want to acquire some portion of his singing skills, can I get it? Can we create a neural marketplace where we can transact these neural skills using a neural net? This is an idea I just want to throw, because this is going to open up enormous number of use cases. Look at the kind of skill equalization that will happen in the economy. That's the second idea I wanted to present. I call this as democratizing the AI skills. The third is, the AI for environment. This is a wonderful picture that was taken in April 2020 from the terraces of Jalandhar. You can see the majestic mountains of Himalayas in the background. Jalandhar town is 200 kilometers away from Himalayas, and we were able to clearly see the silhouette of the Himalayas thanks to COVID-19. This wouldn't have happened. Past 35 years, the people of Jalandhar had never seen Himalayas to this level of clarity. How did this happen? Pollution levels went down, drastically due to COVID-19. Again, I'm not, saying that we should have another COVID-19, but this is posing a very, very interesting situation for all of us. Think about the impact that we are creating in the environment. That is the question I want to leave you with. The second is, people started seeing fishes in the canals of Venice because the boating activities came down drastically. Again, what is the reason? The reduced physical activity by the human beings allowed our co-travelers, like the fishes in the canals of Venice, to come together and then float freely in the canals of Venice. These are two examples which I want to show, because COVID-19 has given this beautiful visualization of what can happen when an environment is clean. Now, what can AI do? Because certainly we are not prepared. None of us want another COVID-19. But what can AI do? These are some of my ideas here, right? Simple visualization of our environment on what will happen if the pollution levels come down? What will happen if the global temperature comes down by a degree? These are the visualizations today AI can project, and human beings can very nicely connect when a visualization is presented to you. You saw the beauty of Himalayas from the terraces of Jalandhar. You saw the beauty of the Venice when the human activity was not there. So friends, what I want to tell you is AI today has the power to predict and show how our environment will be when we can do simulations in reduction of temperatures or reduction of pollution levels. The second idea I want to present in front of you is, you would have all seen the power of AI in drug discovery, in protein structure prediction. Just a day ago, DeepMind came with a product called AlphaFold, which was able to predict the protein structure with enormous level of accuracy. They go by a metric called GDT. I will not get into the technical details of that, but that's the progress that AI has made. By the way, protein structure prediction is a 5-decade-old problem which today DeepMind has cracked. And why am I talking about it? Because if you look at pollution causing materials like lithium, like the lithium batteries, which has lead, cadmium, mercury, and all these materials, they are very, very harmful for the environment if these batteries are not disposed in the right way. I'm now kind of thinking about, this is something, I'm borrowing from Professor Yoshua Bengio, who talks about how can we accelerate material discoveries to invent material that will be conducive and friendly to the environment. This is another power that AI can bring, because the combinatorial complexities of elements, when multiple, we need to figure out materials which if we combine, can they produce environmental friendly combinations? This is a huge combinatorial problem. Somewhere I read for protein, discovery, protein structure discovery, 10 to the power of 300 combinations are there. Even if you take millions of years, you are not going to arrive at the right protein structure combination. Whereas with AI, DeepMind has showed that, we can do it. So the same thing, we can do it to protect and prevent further damage to our environment. This from Dr. Kai-Fu Lee. So you may think that, oh, what is going to happen, if AI is going to do all of these things? He proposed a wonderful framework in one of his TED Talk where he says human beings and AI will coexist forever. Because look at some of the emotions that our heart can bring. The empathy, the power to love, the power to be compassionate. AI can never do that. Whereas AI can assist, augment, and automate our activities. The 3 quadrants where you see the words in white, those are the ones that AI will take over. But the yellows and the reds cannot be done by AI. These can only be done by human beings. So we are looking at a future where human and AI will coexist forever. AI is not going to replace, it will replace in the jobs which are, monotonous. For example, job of a radiologist or job of a customer support person. These are very, very monotonous jobs. We have to liberate ourselves from these jobs. That is where AI can play a powerful role. But when it comes to compassion, empathy, no way AI can replace any of the human beings or any of these human traits. So what I want to conclude is human and AI will coexist. Deep tech will augment, assist, and automate the human beings' monotonous jobs and liberate ourselves to do, some of these wonderful services like being a caretaker. Doctors will no more be doctors, they will be caretakers. Think about the compassion and the sympathy that will flow from the doctor to the patient. That is the world we have to aspire for. That is the world that will come when AI starts serving us as a true companion. With that, I would like to summarize. So we spoke about 3 important things. How AI can enable the disabled, with the examples of how a deaf and dumb individual can benefit from AI. And we also saw that how AI can play a disruption in making the skills equal, amongst the individuals. And then we also saw how AI can truly benefit our environment by visualization and by accelerating the material discovery of materials which can be very, very conducive to our environment. With that, namaste and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gopalan. I think that was a very, very wonderful summary and very, very beautifully done keynote. So thank you so much for being here. Can you come a little bit closer to me? Not so close, but we maintain social distance in that sense. So just a couple of questions and then I let you go, because you've started the day on a great note and on a very, very strong and positive note. my first question to you is, among the different projects that you do, and if it's okay for you to tell us, which project that you work on live, these days is close to your heart and that you are passionate about. So this is a question, and if your company policy allows you to say it, then you can share it with us.
Yeah, I'm just going to quote our president of Intel India, Nivruti Rai, who is very passionate about two vectors in which AI can benefit India. The first vector she talks about is the healthcare, and the second is the road safety. So we are actually working with many of the government enterprises and government organizations how to improve the road safety of our transport system. So this is one project which I felt, because the road deaths in India is extremely high, and we are not certainly in the phase where we can drive autonomous driving cars in the country, but we are looking at how can we improve the safety of our passengers and the drivers, because the road system is improving, but this is one area where Intel India is very, very focused, because there's a huge benefit that we can bring to our society by improving the road safety.
Wow, excellent. Because yesterday we had the topic of mobility in day one in sustainable urban development. I think it's really nice that this topic then ties to that. And of course, we also follow Nivruti Rai from Intel, and this focus on healthcare and road safety. I think these are two pillars that will help us build a better tomorrow, and that's also in line with our theme. Just one more question. I know it's a silly question, but in India, as you work with these multiple agencies, it's difficult to get all the approvals, maybe all the data, because when you use AI, the more data you have, the better is your predictive models and resulting analysis and impact. So how easy or how difficult it is while you set about doing this process?
Yeah, there is still a tendency that it is your data versus my data, right? Okay. So so there is this effort around data commons, where we are trying to make it data itself, first of all, democratic, with taking care of the privacy regulations. So there are specialists, especially in any country, because of the regulations, right? So we have specialists who fundamentally look at how to work through this system, at the same time respecting the data privacy guidelines, so that data can be provided for these AI algorithms without compromising on the privacy guidelines.
Excellent. So there you see it, a good message in the end. I think the message that we can take is data that is for public good should be shared in that sense, while maintaining privacy and anonymousness of that data. All data that can add value and can lead to public good, and AI that can use that data for good should be done. Absolutely. Otherwise, we lose that chance. So thank you once again, Gopalan. Namaste in these COVID times, and wish you all the best for the next set of journey.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And